Hello, this is Awaken to Truth channel, and I am Michael Smith. Thank you for taking the time to stop by and watch this video today. Today, I am going to do something a little different than I have done on this platform. I'm going to have more of a longer format. As you see, the video is a little longer than I usually do. And so this is going to be more like the podcast that I do, which I would encourage you to check out. If you're enjoying these videos, that's just Awaken to Truth. You can find it on Apple. You can find it on Google. You can find it on Spotify, Stitcher, all of the main podcast platforms. But as you see, I have a guest on with me today. And our guest is my sister, Michelle Smith. Michelle, thank you for taking the time to come on and welcome today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Her part of her background, obviously not all of her background, but part of her background is she is currently writing her dissertation for a PhD in, what is it in, Michelle?
It's in theology with an emphasis in church history.
Okay, so an PhD in theology with a history or a historical theology emphasis. And so I had her on today because I wanted to discuss a topic that I think is a little bit unique. I've not heard anybody else discuss it. Of course, that doesn't mean that they haven't, but I just haven't heard anybody approach the subject. We're going to talk today about the idea or the concept of, could Joe Rogan currently be a vessel that God is using? And of course, we're going to unpack what I mean by that. And some Christians would be, I think, immediately off-put by such an idea. But Michelle, I think that history, even the history of this nation, let alone the history of everything, is full of examples of God providentially using people that didn't necessarily serve him, or in some cases, even believe in him.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you even look at, of course, Michael and I are Protestants. God used an unholy king in England to allow Protestants to be free in England when that was happening. So, I mean, God uses a lot of interesting characters.
Yeah, and I'm not a expert by any means in patristics or the medieval age of the church, but I do know that a big part of the Dark Age, and this goes beyond theology, this is what our history books, our secular history books, call the Dark Ages, that one of the reasons they were so dark is that the word of God was obscured, kept, and hidden from people so that people did not have an understanding of the truth on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that while it's very different, because secular society or the powers that be today are not necessarily interested in hiding the word of God from us, that battle was lost a long time ago. America is saturated with the word of God. It's not necessarily doing all that much good oftentimes, but we're saturated with it. But there is certainly a push to begin to obscure certain basic truths in the world that we live and in the times that we're walking through. It's as if certain things are just off limits for us. We don't even get to investigate them. We don't get to look into them. You just don't worry yourself with that.
Yes, which is the moment that every person should begin to question and look into things.
Yeah. And I am surprised because to me, going back the last 2 years with the virus of unknown origins, things felt very odd to me very quickly. It wasn't like it, I will admit, at the time I was pastoring a church, and when the news first began to come out, I didn't know anything about it. For all I know, that, I didn't know anything about it. And I had a concern. But that concern quickly went to suspicion within a matter of weeks. And within a matter of weeks, I begin to see inconsistencies and irregularities that just didn't line up. And those inconsistencies and those irregularities haven't gotten cleared up. They've
Yeah.
continued to become worse over the last couple of years, and they've become more convoluted, and they've become deeper and deeper rabbit holes that the average person just doesn't have time to go down.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I have been surprised how many people seemingly are beginning to just kind of give up and believe everything that we have been told or that we're being told.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's shocking. I think we're going to get into this. I think it's just, I mean, it was unknown, and there was so much fear peddling that it's like people's brains haven't been able to wake up out of that
And there was a legitimate
concern.
yeah, there's a legitimate concern, and in many cases, rightly so, because
Hmm.
there was certainly, as we look back, a threat to certain demographics. And if you came down with a symptomatic version of this sickness, even if you were healthy, it wasn't pleasant. It's not like anybody was
Yeah,
like lining up wanting to get it, but for the vast majority of people, it was simply that. It was an unpleasant week, an unpleasant 2 weeks. For me, I lost my sense of taste for about 2 months, and I lost my smell for almost 6 months. Uh,
yeah. I've heard other people say very similar things.
Yeah, in fact, I begin to think that I just wasn't going to get my smell back. That it was gone, and it still is not exactly the same as it was, but it is like it's about 90% now. You know, at about the 6 month mark, it just kind of started coming back, and now it's probably at about 90%. But back to the Joe Rogan thing, I think it was very timely. I'm not necessarily going to go so far as to say that it was definitively providential, but I think it could be providential because he is such an influential character
Yes.
that he cuts across political divides, because this thing has clearly become primarily left versus right in ideological ways. To some extent there is crossover between the two, but it's become very much political. And so you've got somebody like Rogan, that he has Republican viewers, he has Democratic viewers, he has far right viewers, he has far left viewers, he has libertarian viewers, he has people of all different stripes. And he's been so public, and he has been so his thoughts have been out there for so long
Mhm.
that even the lamestream media can't pull the type of tricks that they generally pull on people that are more obscure or less known. They can't just simply say, well, he's right wing.
Yes, or he's a conspiracy theorist or the different things. And I mean, they've tried. I mean, they were making fun of him on SNL, pretty much anywhere. I mean, he was getting CNN, getting lambasted and lied about.
I had a friend the other day in Cleveland, Ohio, who texted me, and he's a Democrat. And so he texted me, and I don't even know how our conversation went this way. And he told me, man, no way I'm taking horse pills. And I said, do you realize that that's a complete lie? And
Yeah.
he said, what do you mean? I said, the medication that Joe Rogan was talking about was adapted for horses, and it was made for humans.
Yeah.
And the person that invented it, didn't they win a Nobel Prize or
Yes.
something?
Yeah, he did.
And he didn't win a Nobel Prize for his treatment of horses.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know exactly what's on and what's off. I'm not even going to say the name of that medication just because I'm so new to this platform. I'm just going to play it as safe as possible. If it was just my podcast, even though I probably will convert this to a podcast. So if you're listening to this in podcast form and wondering why I'm being much more careful, it's because it's being put up on a platform that I typically do not put my podcast on. But he had no idea. He had just believed hook, line, and sinker that this medication that starts with an I and ends with an ectin was somehow literally made for horses, and that people who would try such a therapy were insane. They were literally risking their lives when it is one of the safer medications that you could possibly take. I mean, people all over the world take it.
Yes. Yeah,
What,
and instead of necessarily taking something that, let's just say, doesn't have years of trials and experience.
yeah, it's very new and it's very experimental.
Yes.
And so, that brings me to, the two gentlemen that he had on his show, and that's Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Robert Malone. Peter McCullough is a renowned cardiologist, and he's also an academic. He writes for the New England Journal of Medicine, a very well-respected journal. I don't think anybody doesn't respect the New England Journal of Medicine. And he is, in fact, the most published cardiologist in the history of cardiologists.
And yet right now he's, I think, over $100,000 in defending his medical license.
Yes, they want to take his medical license from him. So that's his credentials. Dr. Robert Malone is a Harvard graduate MD, medical doctor, has spent his career in virology, immunology, and I hear some people call him a vaccinologist. I
think he referred to himself that way. Maybe.
Okay, so I know he has been called that, but I know that he also that's the immune system is his wheelhouse. That's what he's studied in. That's what he's trained in. He's been a part of the ball game for years. And it's only until recently that they don't want him to play anymore.
Yes. He was kicked off of Twitter indefinitely.
Yeah. And he has worked for companies that have worked right alongside NIH, that have worked right alongside the CDC, that have worked right alongside Big Pharma. He's worked for these companies and he's consulted and he's advised and he's done scientific work. And he is a co-creator of the technology that goes in the current medicine that is so popular right now, that is being pushed every day, the kind that's jabbed. He's the co-creator of that medicine, or of the technology for that medicine. Now, there have been people that have tried to come out and discredit and just flat out lie and say he wasn't. There have even been people that have come out and said he didn't graduate from Harvard, that he's not really even a Harvard MD. I mean, there's no real depth that they won't go to try and discredit someone. And so, but before we get in, I don't want to get really into all the medical stuff that they talked about, because if you want to get into that, go listen to the 2 episodes yourself.
And I will say, if you're interested, it was excellent. Both of them were 3 hours long, and I ended up listening to all of it, of each episode. It was very fascinating.
I listened to Malone twice. I listened to the 3 hours twice. Now, I happened to be driving like 700 miles, but I listened to it twice. I listened to the other one once, and I've listened to part of it a second time because there's so much information to digest. But in short, they lay forth that there's great evidence that there is some therapeutic avenues that we should be taking, that the route and the mode of treatment for the sickness of unknown origins shouldn't be, hey, you got a positive test, go home, and if you can't breathe, come see us at the hospital. That is not the best way to treat it. And that the medicine that's being pushed to treat it is not a end-all be-all. And they're simply setting forth the
Well,
data.
and that it's not like something you would treat, like if you actually have it, you're not going to treat yourself with that.
Of course not. And so, the point is, if people are sick and there's things that can help them, they should receive that treatment, whether they have had a jab or whether they haven't had a jab.
Yes.
Because I know a family member through marriage, two of them, a matter of fact, who both spent the holidays in the hospital with the sickness of unknown origins, and both are fully medicated or fully jabbed.
Yeah, they've had the jab.
Yes. So do I hold that against them that they had it and they got sick? I mean, because I am someone that is for freedom and for choice, would I look at them and be like, well, you made your choice? Yeah, of course not. But that is the point that McCullough and Malone are pulling out, is that is the attitude of many people towards those that would prefer not to receive certain medications, that when they get sick, it's like, well, hey, you kind of deserve it.
Yeah.
Which
is evil and really goes against everything that healthcare workers are supposed to uphold.
Absolutely. And to be clear, by and large, it's not necessarily the healthcare workers that have that mentality, but it's the system and the push and the overall, kind of environment that we're in. When someone has not been medicated and they maybe were anti-medication, and they get the virus of unknown origins and become very sick or even die, the media is gleeful. I mean, the media is extremely happy.
Yes, and they're very unhappy, bringing it back to Joe Rogan. Nothing makes them less happy than when someone has not received the jab, gets the virus of unknown origins, and treats it with alternative options and comes through, like, feels grand, like 48 hours after.
And gets better.
Yes.
And here's the last thing I say, then I want to get more into the philosophical aspect, the philosophical and psychological aspect of these interviews. But one thing that Peter McCullough pulled out, that a good friend of mine who is a medical doctor, basically said, yeah, this is common sense. Like, we've known this in the medical world forever, is he made the point that in any illness, where there's any chance of death or dying, yes, even if that chance is small, in any illness, you are going to have much higher levels of success in treating that in the early stages than waiting till the later stages, which has been the exact mode that we have taken on in this country. Literally, we have testing going on like crazy, like everybody's getting tested. I went into an office the other day that that was work related, and to check in, and I look around and I talk to the techs and the nurse and the doctor, and I said, are all these people getting tests? And they said, yep. And I said, are most of them symptomatic? They said, nope. Most of them don't even have symptoms, and they're rushing in here and getting tests.
Yeah.
And, so you've got that taking place. But let's say they do have symptoms and they're positive. Basically, what our medical system has been told is to tell them, to go home. And if it's so bad, basically, that you feel that you're dying, then come to the hospital once it's already progressed to the later stages.
Yeah.
And so these two gentlemen are both saying this is not the way to go. Like, there are better ways to do this than the way we have been doing it. But
and I want to bring up really quick, and I'll give the disclaimer on this platform that we are not medical doctors. You can consult your medical doctor for whatever decision you wish to make. But I would like to bring really quick before you move on, Dr. Malone made an amazing point that I'd never actually taken the time, I think, to really even kind of I was like, yeah, once he said it, but that, for those that with the jab, that they are not required to give you the disclaimer of what the side effects could be, which is something that all true FDA approved drugs have to do, is give you the list of possible side effects of taking said drug, whatever it is.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And
And in
he
fact, Pfizer gets to hide those results for 75 years.
well, that's what yeah. And when asked about the studies from the FDA, the request that was given back to the courts is, this was from the FDA, is that they wanted to release the information. I think theirs was like 55 years from now or something like that. Like they want to, they want to open up the records 55 years from now. Why would you make such a request? Like,
yeah, it's hard to trust the science when
when they're saying you can't really see the science for 55 years.
And in Pfizer's case, they've requested 75.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of these things are very strange. And so now moving on to one of the entire interviews were controversial, so to speak. But one thing that has become particularly controversial that the media has latched onto, because most people in the media, frankly, are not very smart. They've got journalism degrees and they know how to read and write a little bit, but they're not very educated in many other things. So when they can find something simplistic to grab onto, like little leeches, they'll grab onto that and then they'll stir that up. And so one of those things from
these, let's just point out though, too, most people on TV don't act as journalists. Most journalists at writing don't act as journalists.
No.
You know this from your academic writing. If I were to so flimsily quote different sources and do what our journalists do, they would kick me out of the program because that's unacceptable work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because oftentimes going to the Washington Post and the New York Times and wonderful outlets such as that, they will write entire stories based on unnamed sources.
Yes. Yeah.
The source is unnamed. Try that in a basic undergraduate academic paper. I'm making this claim. What's your basis for that claim? It's an unnamed source. I prefer not to say. It's not going to work, but they do it all the time, and nobody knows that that's the way that they're operating, and that's the type of method that they're using to conduct so-called journalism. But one of the things that they have latched onto from this is this idea of mass formation psychosis.
Yes,
and so
that Malone said.
Yes. And he said that basically there's a mass formation psychosis that is taking place around us, and that people are having a difficult time differentiating actual reality from the disconnected reality that we have been fed for a very significant period of time now. And that much of the information and much of the thought processes are so disconnected from reality that the only, one possible reason for that is this idea of mass formation psychosis, of which he is not the inventor of. He didn't come up with that idea. There's a psychology professor, I think in Belgium or Brussels or somewhere like that. Don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's a full tenured professor, not like a junior professor that just got hired, a full professor, a published professor. And he came up with this hypothesis, and he thinks that it's one possible reason that we're experiencing the things that we're experiencing. Now, can we definitively say he's right? No, but why would we automatically, as the press is doing, dismiss it and write it off as some type of crazy thing when clearly there are people like my friend in Cleveland that are literally believing things that are fed to them directly from the mainstream media that are complete and total lies, have been proved as complete and total lies, and yet they still have great difficulty, even when you show them that it's a complete and total lie, backed by an actual legitimate source, they still have a hard time believing it. How do you explain that? Well, I don't know. Maybe this mass formation psychosis is one way that it can be explained.
Definitely. I mean, you see that all the time. I mean, it's almost like people been plugged into the matrix and they believe a lie that's not reality. And what's funny is as they attack him, they're literally proving what he said. Like
I,
every day, it's proven right.
I was going to bring that up next, is that the fact that they are attacking a Harvard trained medical doctor who has a well-established, credible career and is a vaxonologist, and they're attacking him as a right-wing anti-vaxxer. That
And
in and of,
and I
that in
think
and of
he's even
itself.
I believe he's even had this jab that we're, discussing. I believe
Yes,
yeah.
he has been fully medicated himself.
Yeah.
And so it shows that reality, facts, truth has nothing to do with it. And so that kind of brings me to, could Joe Rogan be kind of providentially used at this time in order to not that God is using Joe Rogan to usher people into the kingdom of God. That's not what I'm saying, but that he is just a vessel that's being used just to kind of pat people on the face, just a little wake up and say, hey, look around here, see what's taking place, and wake up from the fog that you have been in, and maybe unplug from some of these outlets that you have so aggressively plugged into. Because if you've listened to my podcast, you know well that I'm not a big fan of any of the outlets. I watch MSNBC occasionally. I watch CNN some. I watch Fox News and Fox Business. Those are the 4 outlets that I watch. I don't particularly watch any of them because I'm looking for the truth. I watch all 4 of them because I'm looking to see what this side is saying and what this side is saying. Now, I align much more with the right. I align much more on the conservative side of the aisle, but that doesn't mean that I trust Fox News as some type of beacon of truth. There are things that they say that are true. There are anchors that they have or hosts that they have that I think do a pretty good job, but they clearly have their agenda just as much as the MSNBCs and the CNNs. It's just to a different audience and it's for a different purpose. And it seems like it's literally creating almost 2 different realities that America is living in. This reality over here and that reality over there. And maybe that further plays into, this idea of mass formation psychosis, that you've got a formation of 2 different sides that have amassed together. And maybe there's some true information in both. But here's the truth of the matter. As much as the one side of the aisle wants to control and disseminate and talk about misinformation, there is misinformation out there.
Yeah, and there's always going to be.
There's always going to be.
You can't stop that.
No, I see people on the right side of the aisle discuss, talk about, and promote things that are not true all the time.
Yeah.
But likewise, there's many on the other side that do the exact same thing. We can't stop well, they're certainly going to give it their best shot, but it's not like that's something that we can completely stop or that we can completely govern. But the more and here's the I don't know if this is a plan or if this is just a byproduct, but the more you suppress dialogue, the more you suppress free speech, the more you suppress a free exchange of ideas, data, and not just subjective truth that's I believe this is true, but objective truth, like here is the numbers
Actual,
yes, here is what the medicine has actually done, here are the statistics, here, objective truth that cannot be argued with. As soon as you suppress that, you have more misinformation than you would have had if you just let things go wide open.
Well, and I think the bottom line that we should all realize, and I think, this, is it's like they're not actually trying to stop the spread of misinformation. They're just trying to control what information is released which then aligns with whatever agenda they have. If it doesn't align with that agenda, you're gone. That's why Malone is off Twitter. Malone said nothing that should have made him be deplatformed from Twitter, but he went against the narrative, and he is a very he was popular and has obviously authority speaking on the subject. And when he went against the grain and their narrative, he was gone. It was that simple. It had nothing to do with truth. And I think that's what kind of what we're talking about with Joe Rogan. And I think, God using him is simply just in a way of allowing truth to be heard, another side, because right now there are powers on all the different platforms trying to control and smother truth.
Correct. Yeah. Basic truth and and here's the thing. This is their big, code word, basic science, because science, until something has been proved to be completely and totally true, is not necessarily, total and complete truth. It's a process of coming to that. But they want to cut the process out, and they've wanted to cut the process out from day one and come to a complete and total, this is it, there's nothing else. If you don't believe this, you're anti-science. If you attack me, you are attacking science. That kind of thing, which of course is total and complete nonsense. But I think that I'm encouraged that somebody like Rogan would, to me, he's had a little bit of an awakening himself. He's had a little bit of, the fog and the mist has come out. He's always been a smart guy. He's always been a searcher. He's always been a thinker. He's always been somebody that is analytical. So I'm not acting like he hasn't been that in the past. He absolutely has. But I think more and more the fog of the big plan, whatever that is, the weird hiding of truth and the weird kind of governing of what you can say and what you cannot say and what you can say is true. And I think he's kind of had an eye-opening experience with this as he saw the MSM absolutely tell outright lies, and there was no consequence from it other than the fact that he's used his platform to expose them and show that they absolutely did lie. But there's been no consequences.
No. Well, and I think with Rogan, I think I would use the word, I guess, maybe more motivated after they blatantly lied about him. I mean, even again, he was in a sketch in SNL recently where they were peddling misinformation actually, and made it as a skit mocking him. And I think the more he's been attacked, the more he's kind of just opened up and been like, I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to discuss the other side of this thing.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate Spotify for allowing him, which other platforms have it, for allowing him to air out, to let these people talk and give their opinion on, assess the data themselves.
Yeah, because the clips that were put on this platform were taken away.
Yes.
Yeah, they're gone. And so the only place that it can be heard is on Spotify. And if you go to the JRE, then you'll find it and you can listen to it. If you have not listened to it already, I've sent it to some people because I think everybody needs to listen to it. And here's the last thing I'll say is I've heard some criticisms of people saying, well, they were overly anti-medicine. And by medicine, I'm talking about the jab.
Malone has had, I think, two.
Yeah, and he just shared his actual experience. The second one, he had a reaction that could have killed him.
Yeah,
his blood pressure went extremely high, and it went to a very dangerous level. But he had it, and he even talks about how he was kind of proud to get it because he was a co-creator of that technology, and he even kind of let the nurse know, I'm the co-creator of this. So he had it. But here's the thing. What they're saying is they're trying to be the yin to the yang of the other side of the equation. They're trying to just say, look, this thing is far from perfect. This thing has some problems. Here's some of the data that's beginning to come out. This is the kind of stuff that you need to know so that you can make an informed decision. Whereas on the other side of the equation, you've got, as you just mentioned, Twitter. And on Twitter, you can't even agree with the CDC without being losing your platform these days.
Yeah.
Because the CDC even admits that the medication is not perfect.
Yeah.
If you point that out on the little bird on Twitter, you're suspended and probably gone for good. They have moved to almost a no tolerance of any criticism of anything other than the medication for the virus of unknown origins is totally and completely perfect. And so I think that there could be, this is my prayer, this kind of storm of them overplaying their hand, and some people like Joe Rogan and probably others kind of providentially speaking truth in the midst of all of the noise and in the midst of, and allowing people to begin to form their own decisions and let people begin to once again rise up and fight for not whether you get it or whether you don't get it. I don't care. As I have said 100 times, if you want to get 100 of them, get 100 of them. It doesn't bother me a bit. But not fighting for get it or don't get it. Who cares about that? Make your own decision, but fighting for the freedom to have information and to make a rational and an informed choice, which that is exactly what is currently being stripped away from us, is the ability to make rational and informed decision and choices for our lives, for our health, and for our bodies.
Yeah, and that's frightening. I pulled up a quote that I thought is excellent and fits with what we were talking about. It says, and I don't know who originally said this, but truth does not mind being questioned. A lie does not like being challenged. And I find that to be very true. And I feel like we're kind of living that in this moment.
Absolutely. I'll just share this and then we'll close and wrap this up. I had a deal recently that you're familiar with. It was a family situation, and there was a guy that at best did something that was a garbage thing to do, and at worst was unethical. And with the background that I have, I was able to go through it and look at the numbers, and there was nothing that could be argued with because the numbers were the numbers. And when I confronted this individual, he had nothing but misdirection. When I wouldn't accept his misdirection, he had nowhere left to go. And what is my point in that? My point in that is when you have the truth, you are confident because you know that you know that you know you can come with whatever you want, and I'm going to be able to defend it. When you do not have the truth, you absolutely do not want any questions because you understand that very quickly the little ravels can begin to unravel, and the entire thing that you're selling can begin to be exposed as something that maybe a lot of people don't actually want to buy. And so I think that's exactly what that quote that you quoted, is stating, is that when you have the truth, you are able to stand firm and you're able to defend. When you don't have the truth, you begin to behave in ways that we are seeing at a level that in our lifetimes we have never previously seen. And maybe, just maybe, Joe Rogan is providentially being used of God to wake people up to this. And in the end, I think that what I would love to see happen is, yes, I want people to wake up to all of these things. Yes, I'd love to have some type of something happen in this country where our politicians and things were accountable once again, and actually were accountable to the people that put them in office, and all of that would be fantastic. But ultimately, that people, this kind of waking up by degrees, that it will set the stage and the primer for people to begin to be awakened spiritually to the ultimate truth, Jesus Christ, who of course said, I am the truth, the life, and the way.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And so, do you have anything else to add today before we sign off?
No, I think we have pretty much covered it, but, I mean, I think the point to take from this, I think, you know, as Christians, we need discernment in this time. I mean, we always need it, but especially in these odd times. And then also just in a natural sense, critical thinking. Like it's time for people to quit just believing something simply because you heard it. And even if you go and watch these two interviews that we highly recommend on Spotify, uh, we're not saying just believe everything because they say it,
Nope.
but you need it. What's good is to listen to other voices and to have dissenting voices and to be able to kind of to use your brain and critically think and think things through instead of just having one side that's allowed to speak all the time. That's it's just not it's not good.
Search it out.
Yes.
And that's biblical. Paul said that the Thessalonians
Yeah.
were not as noble as the Bereans, because the Thessalonians just kind of heard what Paul said and was like, "Oh, this is great." The
Yeah.
Bereans, it said they went and they searched out the scriptures and they weighed it. They saw, is what he's saying actually true? And because Paul knew he was in the truth, he welcomed such a thing. And so search it out. No, we can't search everything out, but when it's something as important as this and has been as pervasive as this and has been as invasive as this to our
Yeah.
lives, to our society, it's something that's worth searching out. So we'll leave you on that note. God bless you. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Hope you enjoyed it. And please stop back by. We'll be out with another video very, very soon.